Hello Whiskey World, this is Whiskey Whistle and I'm your host Mark. This is review number 71 and we're going to be looking at the Glendronach. The Hielan it's called. It's 8 years old. This is 46%. It is non-chill filtered and it's natural color. So why don't we just get that poured right away and we'll carry on from there. As those of you who've been watching, as you know, I just recently attended a Glendronach tasting, an official tasting, about a week ago. There we are. Is that enough? Let's pour just a tad more, shall we? There. That'd be about 40 milliliters, I'd say. So I attended an official Glendronach whiskey tasting here in Seoul. That's where I live. That was last week. Well, anyway, May 19th it was. And what an event that was. It was just fantastic. And the officiant, I don't know if that's the best word for that, the presenter, the master taster of the event, was none other than Stuart Buchanan. And, well, if you're wondering why this bottle looks a little funny, there we see Slange and his signature right there on the bottle. Anyway, so that means I've had all of that since the 19th. You know, today's only May 30th. Oh, well, it is good. It's very good. So, we will let that sit just for a tad. Not too long. It's only 8 years old. Doesn't need much breathing. About a minute for every year on the label. And this particular one, as I mentioned, it is unchill filtered and it's natural color. And what color is that? That is, you know, into the deeper gold tones. Okay, so maybe something like a tarnished gold, antique gold. Anyway, all whiskey colors are beautiful. They really don't tell you much about the whiskey. So you can't say, oh, it's dark, it's going to be good, or oh, it's light, it's not going to be good. You can't say anything like that whatsoever. All you can do is just appreciate it, and especially if you know that it's natural, which this is, then you can really take a liking to the color. Pardon me. And I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but this has really nice slow legs, slow tears that are drizzling down the glass. Boy, I don't know, suddenly I've got a hoarse throat here. Yeah, there you can see the beating happening there. And I've talked about that before and what I think of this. When it's so slow and you see some little beads remaining high up on the glass, that really tells you that it's got some good viscosity and perhaps a little bit of oiliness to it. And this seems to be something that happens just with the unchill filtered whiskeys. Okay, well, let's get started. This one, I've mentioned it's 8 years old. It's called the Hielan. It has spent 4 years in bourbon casks and then a further 4 years old in sherry, Oloroso sherry casks, in fact. And so the bourbon, the ex-bourbon casks, that'll give it lots of vanillins and, well, some bourbon flavors. And the sherry casks, this will provide some fruitiness, certainly provides the color. So that's a lot darker than typical ex-bourbon matured whiskey, at least at this age. Fruitiness and dryness from the tannins of the grape juice, the wine that's gone in there. Okay, well, let's get into the nosing, shall we? And before we do so, there will be a short advertisement right there. Welcome back. Thanks for staying and tuned in. Let's give that a whiff now. And the thing that I really love about this one As you know, there's a particular distillery that I quite like, and I've done a lot of reviews of. I won't mention the name, but you know what it is if you've been watching. And they deal mainly with bourbon, ex-bourbon casks for their basic maturation. They do extra maturation in other casks, but largely their whiskey spends its time in ex-bourbon. And they also happen to be a Highland single malt Scotch whiskey from the Highland region. So is the Glendronach, so that's interesting. And people who love that particular whiskey brand could definitely venture over to the Glendronach with this one and really enjoy it. So I'm getting some classic vanilla notes. However, the longer you smell it, you can get some smokiness. And this is not peat smoke, however. It's more like a wood smoke, perhaps pine. What else have I written? I've moved my notes so that way I'm not having to look away so much. Right, what I wrote here, spicy, vanilla, earthy. Something else I can't read is too far away. Oh well. Now, has the sherry provided any kind of raisin or darker fruit notes? Well, they're lurking in there, and I find the more time you spend with this one, that dark fruit flavor really grows. So spend some time with this, even though it's a young whiskey. Yeah, something's going on there. It's a little chocolatey. And I'm going to jump out there and say Lowry's chocolate-covered maraschino cherries. Which, if you've had those, they come in a box, a yellow box. I don't even know if they're available anymore. But it's basically got fairly nice dark chocolate on the outside. And the inside, you've got the maraschino cherry, as well as something like a, what can I call that? A vanilla cream, but more like something like, kind of like what's inside the Cadbury cream egg. So, can you get the idea? Maraschino cherry, that cream from inside the Cadbury's cream egg, and then a darker chocolate. Yeah, I'm really getting more and more dried cherries going on here now. Okay, well, it's time to give that a taste. Let's do that now. For 8 years old, this will knock your socks off. There are a lot of people out there who stay away from young whiskey. And of course, to each their own, maybe they do like those older whiskey flavors that come from long maturation, which you don't really get in young whiskeys. But price to flavor, I think something like this one should definitely be explored by anyone who's a whiskey fan, who likes Scotch whiskey, and or who likes perhaps bourbon. This is definitely a nice whiskey for a bourbon lover. Yeah, there's lots of wood happening here. Now, if you are a bourbon lover and you're looking at some Scotch whiskeys, I mean, you're not going to get the same scent, the same flavor as a bourbon, but what you want is something that is recognizable. So you'll recognize, oh yes, here is the toasted oak notes that I'm familiar with. Yes, you'll notice that, but it's not going to be the big punch that you get with a lot of the bourbons. This is much milder. And then you've got that Oloroso sherry happening in here as well. You could sit and smell this for quite a while and not get bored. Okay, let's try that again. The first time you try something, sometimes the alcohol kind of throws your palate helter-skelter. You know, especially if this is the first, if it's the first drink you've had in the day. The second mouthful, this is where you really get to know the whiskey, and definitely really chocolatey. And the cherry note, I cannot, nothing else is really coming into my mind at this point. And of course there's vanilla. And again, it's kind of that vanilla cream. The mouthfeel is quite buttery. And there is something akin to perhaps what's the word I'm looking for? Sweet cream butter. So butter that's had a little bit of what do they put in that? Something slightly sour goes into the sweet cream butter when they make that. I'm forgetting what it is. I should know that. Anyway. What else did I write there? Dried plums and raisins begin to grow. There is a slight hint of effervescence here. Now, not to say that this is fizzy. But if you hang on to it in your mouth for a while, it really kind of pops in an extremely pleasant way, of course. Boy, this is really, really fantastic. A little bit of herbals there, a little bit dry. And a really sweet herb that's going on there. What is that? Sweet, slightly minty. Which one is that? I can't put my finger on it, but whatever herb is on the minty side, I wouldn't quite say spearmint, but you know, getting there. Maybe fresh basil is a good way to describe that. But it's not as earthy as basil. Okay, how about the finish? It's spicy, it's dry. I've still got these chocolate cherries, the Lowry's chocolate cherries left in there. Very nice. Now I've still got about 30 milliliters left here. So we're going to add a bit of water. And what am I going to use today? I'm going to use my little Glendronach Distillery Company Limited water jug, a whiskey water jug. It's very small. This is a gift that I got from the whiskey tasting, so that's great. Let's pour. Now, it's really hard to pour though, so I'm going to have to give it a just give it a shot. Okay, that was a bit much. Okay. Let that mix up a little bit. Good thing is it's 46%. So this can handle a little bit of water. Now, why would you add water? Just to experiment, just to see what you like, just to see how the whiskey changes, to have a bit of fun with it. And you may find you don't like it with water. You may find you like some whiskeys with water and some without. But you'll never know until you try. And always start with the smallest amount and then work upwards, because it's really hard to go back. Oh, so with the water, you really get a lot more vanilla going on. Yeah, that bourbon cask is really singing now. And this is quality wood. There is nothing I can say in a negative way about this whatsoever. Boy, a little bit perfumey. And more of the dark fruits are coming through now with water, and less of the wood smoke. What did I write there? Less smoke, more vanilla, more sherry. I wrote here ripe banana. Well, there's some ripe fruits there. Oh, nice. Okay, we'll have one more short advertisement right here. Welcome back. Let's get on to the taste with a little bit of water added, also known as the palate. Of course, not the pallet that you store things on in a supermarket. Oh. You know, I must have just hit that just right. I thought I added too much water, but I would say no. Okay, time to taste it. Cheers, everyone. And a big cheers out to, first of all, Mr. Stuart Buchanan. He is the Global Brand Ambassador. I met him that night and really enjoyed talking to him. Wish I could have had a drink with him, but he had quite a busy schedule. And I just, thought, well, he's here for such a short time. He probably wants to relax. So I kind of held my tongue when I thought, oh, maybe I'll ask him if he wants to go get a cold one together, or perhaps go get a nice whiskey together. Anyway, hopefully opportunity will present another chance. And lastly, also to Mr. Billy Walker, who is the master distiller. And there's going to be some changes going on with Glendronach. And these are of an ownership nature. So the brand and its parent, which is called the Glendronach Distillery Company Limited, has been purchased by the makers of Jack Daniels, also called Brown-Forman. And this is relatively new, within the last month or so. There's not much really we can say other than let's just hope and wait and see what goes on with that. I think it's going to be positive. This company, the Glendronach Distillery Company, the Glendronach Distillery Company, and also Glenglassaugh, that's the third distillery in the group. They are all doing very, very well, and I think that what can Brown-Forman do for them is get them into markets where they are not presently available. They can piggyback with brand ambassadors in a particular area. You know, say it's somewhere in Eastern Europe, perhaps, or whether it's somewhere in Asia, you know, wherever they're not quite well represented yet. So that'll be good backup. Production-wise, hopefully they'll just continue as they are because they're doing a fantastic job. Okay, enough talk. Palate with water. Still very potent, very buttery. Some malt coming through now, barley malt, I would hope. And that cherry note has really come alive, in fact. Vanilla cherry vanilla with chocolate. Much fruitier. Candied fruits, as in, you know, some baked goods, and sort of a cinnamon toast sort of flavor as well. One where you would get that toasted quite well. Oh, lovely nose, boy. When I think back to the 15-year-old that I reviewed, that was quite nice. Really sherry. That's a big sherry bomb. This one has less of a sherry influence, obviously. But for 8 years old, boy, you need to try this. You need to try it very soon. That's all I can say. Okay, how about the finish with water? Still kind of fizzy, by the way. Barley malt, still chocolatey, a little bit herbal, not quite as dry. What else here? There's a little bit of this fall leaves kind of a smell that's happening. You know, after they've fallen and they've, you know, collected all over the sidewalks, all over the woods next to wherever you live, and there's still maybe some frost going on in the morning, and you get that kind of a very unusual scent that comes from those leaves as they decompose. And then also take those leaves and maybe you burn them and you get a little bit of that scent coming through. So a little bit of this, I guess I would call that sort of a savory note, for lack of a better word. I always love the smell of fall leaves as fall progresses, and you walk around and the air smells so interesting. And if you ever get a chance to pick up, I think it's, what kind of a leaf is that? It's rather large. Can't recall the name of the leaf. But the ones on the ground, pick it up, give it a whiff. What a smell. I wanted to take those and take them home and put them around the house. They're a little bit on the, I mean, they're too strong to have in the house. But outside really gives you that smell of fall. Anyway, so great whiskey for fall, perhaps. Springtime here, oh well. It's nice to think of other seasons even though you're in a different one. Okay, so the Glendronach, the Hielan 8-year-old single malt Scotch whiskey from the Highland region. What score is this going to get? Well, I'll tell you, I wrote down 88 out of 100, but I think that just doesn't do it justice. So I'm going to bump that up to 89 out of 100 for the Glendronach, the Hielan 8-year-old. 89 out of 100, that is the WhiskyWhistle Whisky score for this whiskey. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. If you have watched all the way till now and you're a new subscriber, thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed, you can do so just by clicking the link right down there. Okay? That'll help to help hopefully eventually fund future reviews and perhaps other interesting things that will come on the channel here. Okay? Again, my name is Mark. Thank you for tuning in to Whiskey Whistle, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.